In this video, I'm going to show you a step-by-step tutorial on how to texture an item using Photoshop. To get started, we are going to go to the Kawana shared files and download a top template to use. For this, I want everyone to use 444C top pose. Download and extract the file. Over here, I'm going to rename the item so I know what I'm looking at when I put it into Unity. I find it easier to just open Unity and drag it into the folder where I want it to be located in. When I open it in Unity, I'm going to drag the FBX into my viewport, and over here I'm just hiding the mask so I can see the item clearer. Here I'm going to create a material wall. Here you can see the different material balls that I would need for the different materials. So I'm creating another ball for the rings. Then to apply it to your item, you just drag the material balls to the FBX. For the shader, we always use ZEPETO bit standard as a starting point. I'm putting in the normal maps as well as the ambient, or sometimes called the occlusion map, to get started, so I have a brief idea of how the item looks. And here I'm making it gray so I can look at it clearer. Now we can open Photoshop and move our UV map into Photoshop to start editing our texture. To start off, I'm going to black out the outside of the UV maps, the areas that we don't actually need, so I can actually see my map clearer and understand where I'm texturing. This video mostly is going to be in real time, so please look at what I'm clicking, and on the bottom left corner you can see what shortcuts and buttons I'm clicking. I'm now going to drag in the ambient file. Sometimes you can use this to make your items look better, more realistic, or a certain style or look that you prefer. It is only a guide. You can use it if you want. If you don't like how it looks, you can choose to not use it as well. Here I'm just playing around with the colors, picking colors, seeing what looks best. I'm going to do a quick export, so it's Control, Shift, Alt, and W. Make sure to change the width and height to 512 by 512. Here you select the folder of the Unity folder, and here you just rename the item to like red top, blue top, whatever you want. And I'm dragging it into the material ball to see how the color looks. I'm moving back into Photoshop and I realize that these UVs over here are actually the rings. So I'm just going to paint it gray. Alternatively, I'm going to get a steel texture, something that looks like silver. And I'm just going to drag it in. I'm now quickly exporting the image so I can actually see if I'm doing the correct thing. Now you see that the rings are now silver, so I know it has been applied. I'm going to come back and detail this better for later on. Now I'm going to find some fabric textures online to see how I can make the top look more realistic and more interesting with intricate details. I see this pink ribbed texture, which seems very interesting, so I'm going to just open the image into a new tab. So I'm going to right click and save it. Sometimes you'll see that the format is a web page, so you can't actually save it as a PNG or JPEG and you can't use it. So usually you would then screen grab it from your screen and then save it. I'm then opening Photoshop, looking for wherever I saved the image, and then dragging it into Photoshop. After this, I want to fill the whole t-shirt UV with the image. So to make things easier, I'm just hiding everything for now. Please do look at what buttons I'm pressing. I usually use keyboard shortcuts on Photoshop to make the process of texturing faster. Here I'm going to select all of them and then merge all the layers. You can right click and click convert to smart object to retain the image quality while you're scaling it up and down. I like grouping all my textures together in the same folder and renaming it. This way it keeps your folders neat and you know where to look for things. Now I'm going to quick export this image so I can view it into Unity and see how it looks so far. Over here, I see that the texture in Photoshop doesn't look like my items, so I actually went back into Photoshop and did quite a lot of things to try and fix that, and only later to realize that I forgot to change the material ball color. For now, you can skip this section or you can continue watching to see how I add filters and adjustments to edit the image. So over here, if I click the material of the actual top, you'll see that it was gray, and now I'm changing it to white, and that's why the colors just didn't look right. And here I'm back into Photoshop, changing it back to the original or not, and then seeing it how it would look in Unity. At this point, I see that the occlusion map layer are making the folds extremely dark compared to the actual texture. So I'm going to export it without the occlusion map or the ambient map and seeing how it looks. This is how it looks without, and I actually prefer it without. So do remember that these ambient and occlusion maps are just for assistance for your texturing. If you don't like it, you don't have to use it. Okay, so now I'm happy with the base texture. I want to add more detail to the item. So I want to add some hem lines, the knitting edges on the clothing, just to make it have a more realistic feel. I'm going to use the pen tool to make a line. So this, you don't need to click on a layer or create a new layer. It will create one automatically. And then you can change the color. You can make it black or gray. In this case, I'm going to make it gray and then change the layer to multiply. Then you can play with the thickness or even the changing the line type to a dotted line. You can even click more and then change the actual dash to make it longer or shorter gaps. I'm duplicating the line and I'm going to export and see how it looks on Unity. From here, I see how it looks and it's a bit weird, so I'm going to go back to Photoshop and continue editing these lines until I'm happy. I'm somewhat happy with the results, so I also want to just add hemlines to other places such as the neck area. The process for this is the same as what I showed earlier with the sleeves. I'm going to just hide a few layers and show my UVs again, just so I can use the UV as a guide. To keep things organized, I grouped all the layers and I'm going to rename it so I know what the folder is. And instead of individually having the lines on multiply, I'm changing the whole folder to multiply, which really helps. Now I feel like I want to add more detail. So where the hemline, I will actually want to change the material of the item. So bear with me, I'm going to show you what to do. So here I'm just gonna use the mask tool. I'm gonna mask off where I don't want the texture to be. So instead of deleting the textures and then you want to scale the item later, now you deleted areas, so it's gonna mess up your image. So that's what the mask tool is good for. There is a video about masks, about the mask tool in the YouTube guide. So you after this, you can look through those videos. I'm now going to duplicate one of the textures, dragging it out of the folder, and I'm going to scale it down. So now, even though it's the same texture, just because I scaled it down, it feels like a different kind of texture. I'm happy with how it looks, so I'm going to select all of that and duplicate it for the top area. And I'm going to select all and then group it all together so I can keep all my files organized. Again, I'm going to quickly export it into Unity so I can see how the details look. I see that I also want to add the detail at the bottom of the top, so I'm going to do that on Photoshop. The process is going to be the same as what I've shown previously. Here I'm having my UV on. I'm going to create a line and then delete the texture I don't need and add the smaller texture details where I want it to be. Now this looks like how I like it. It looks just proportionally better for me. Again, it's preference. You are the one designing, so you either choose to add the details or not. And now you see these hand areas where it looks like the texture looks so much larger than everywhere else. This is because of the layout. You see over here, this is where all the bundled extra pieces are. To make this less visible and slightly better, I'm just going to find the material and scale it down. So I'm going to delete the area here and add in the smaller scale pink texture. Now it looks smaller and just slightly better. I'm liking how the texture of the clothing looks right now. So I'm going to start adding some graphics to make it more interesting. In Photoshop, you can add text graphics. You can download free fonts online and change it up to make something that you like. When you double click a layer styles tab will open and you can do quite a lot of things with it. So over here, I'm going to add a bevel style and you can play around with how you want to look. You can play around with all the other available options. I'm happy with how it looks and the size and the position. I'm opening Chrome. I'm going to this website, Free Pick, to find a graphics for the top. So I'm thinking of looking for a butterfly graphics. So this is the butterfly I want. I'm going to drag the PNG into Photoshop, and often these PNGs have a white background. So here I'm going to show you how I would erase them using the wand tool and clicking delete to delete the white. Most of these files also come with an Illustrator file. With the Illustrator file, you can actually remove the white and only keep the black lines. But if you don't know how to use Illustrator, this is how I do it on Photoshop. So I'm going to copy this butterfly without the white background, but I'm going to keep the white inside and I'm going to drag it into the top file. I'm first going to convert it into a smart object and then scaling it down. This ensures that I keep the quality. I'm putting it where I want to and I'm going to quickly export it onto Unity to see how it looks. In some cases, you do want the white of the butterfly to be erased and only keep the black. So to do that, I'm going back to my butterfly file. I'm deselecting those two buttons on top while I'm on the wand tool and clicking the whites and delete it. Now you can see there's some whites that are left over. You can try your best to select those white and click delete again. Or you can create a new layer, paint it black and create a clip masking over the butterfly. And then in that way, the whole image will be black without any white spots. Now I think the top looks pretty good. I'm going to show you how you can quickly change the base color of the top to a different color, such as white, pink, or blue, so you can make variations of the same design. Instead of making many images of different colors of the same design, there's a quicker way that you can do. You can first drag in the white and then change the color of the image to a blue or whatever color you want. You can see it changed the whole image of your top. When you want a dark color, you will see that your design needs to change because now you can't see the butterfly. In Photoshop, I'm going to create a dark toned top and then quickly change the graphics to white. I'm pretty satisfied with the tops and the design right now, and I see the rings. That's something I would want to texture more on. For this section, I'm just going to detail more into the rings so it looks more intricate and detailed and realistic. I know that this is a very small part of the item, but sometimes if you detail the very small intricate parts of your item, it can make it more realistic and better and more attractive. Now that I'm satisfied with the results, I'm going to export the file and preview it. To preview it, I can show it, click Loader, and put in my ZEPETO ID and drag it into the correct category. Then click Play. Here I can hide the space and change the poses and view it in scenes. This gives you a better idea of how the item would look on your avatar once it's in the game. You can also change the rotation of the avatar because in Unity you'll see that the lighting from the front view is brighter and then there's no light from the back. So it's nice just to see how it would look if the back of the top was also lightened. Now I'm happy with the results, so I'm going to unclick the play button and export all my textures and rename them to what the files are. After this, you're going to right click and export it as a .zepeto file. This is the file that you will be using to upload onto ZEPETO Studio. Here I'm going to show you how you upload onto ZEPETO Studio. And this is the end of the video. I hope it was helpful and that I can get to see some great designs from all of you.